Saturday night, playoff hockey. It doesn't get any better than this. Game 4 in Toronto as the Toronto Maple Leafs take on the Boston Bruins. And the Toronto Maple Leafs, they got to win this one. It's a big one on home ice. Maple Leaf Square populated full of Leafs fans ready to go. And we're ready to go on Hockey Night in Canada, Punjabi, in about a half hour's time as well. And the Boston Bruins, boys, they are a team that are a challenge during the best of times. But right now for the Toronto Maple Leafs, you're trailing 2-1 in this series. A lot of intrigue as you got to keep and hold home ice.
Odd enough to say, I know we hear this time and time again in the playoffs, must-win game tonight for Toronto. If they lose tonight, 3-1 down, headed back to the Garden, it's going to be really tough to come back from
They
that.
ain't coming back from 3-1 against Boston. So
Achha.
Toronto hasn't played that poorly, but obviously the games, the series doesn't say that, right?
It really feels like the last couple of games, there's been some lulls where it's kind of like regular season hockey. You don't have to see the intensity from Toronto or Boston at certain points.
Yeah.
Feels like Boston knows when to take their foot off the pedal a bit, but the Leafs have to come with some fire tonight.
ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਤਾਦਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੇਮ ਚੱਕਣੀ ਪੈਣੀ ਹੈ ਸੋ ਆਸਟਨ ਮੈਥਿਊਜ਼ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਗੋਲ 6 ਖਿਡਾਰੀਆਂ ਕੋ ਇੱਕ ਗੋਲ ਆ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਮੇਪਲ ਲੀਫਸ ਲਈ ਪਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਤਾਦੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੇਮ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੂਸਰੀ ਪੱਧਰ ਤੱਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਮੈਥਿਊਜ਼ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਗੋਲ ਆ but Mitch Marner is kind of MIA right now.
Yeah.
They need him to pick up his game big time.
Yeah, he's a playmaker, but he only has 1 assist, and that's it. That's all he's got in the 3 games.
One
so
assist,
that's not enough.
I think no shots on goal last game.
Yes.
And yeah, like he's got to step it up. He has to shoot the puck. He has to create because Matthews is also getting a lot of heat right now, boys. And I don't know how you feel about that, but maybe a little too focused, like I mentioned, on the 70-goal mark. That was announced again by Mr. Cuthbert in the game. I feel like that was the sentiment in Toronto, and right now they need their stars to step up.
Yeah, I think that was uncalled for. That was a little bit of bad luck potentially. Bad karma. I don't know. Something.
I had to take that cheap
Whatever.
shot.
Yeah, you're the cheap shot artist on this show, Ric Flair of our broadcast, basically.
I'm inspired by
gouging
Brad
the
Marchand.
eyes. And,
I'm inspired by him.
yeah,
He's been wanting to take a shot at Matthews for a while.
I'm not sure what's going on here,
Yeah.
but Mitch Marner, actually, I want to stay on that for a second because at least Matthews and Tavares, they're getting to the greasy parts of the ice. Their shot average is coming from, it's not the same as the regular season, but it's not a huge difference. Mitch Marner is like in a different area code right now. ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਇਲਾਕੇ 'ਚ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਗਿਆ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਸ਼ਾਟ ਡਿਸਟੈਂਸ ਅਤੇ ਸਲੌਟ ਸ਼ਾਟਸ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਕਿ ਦੁੱਗਣੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ percentage ਉਹਦੀ ਘਟ ਗਈ ਆ. So Mitch Marner, playoffs is all about getting on the inside, and I understand he's not going to be taking cross checks in front of the front of the net, but when you're taking those shots, you got to be closer to the net.
ਉਹਦਾ ਪਾਰਕਿੰਗ ਲਾਟ 'ਚ ਬੈਠਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਸ਼ਾਟ ਲਈ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਫਿਰ ਤੂੰ ਰਿੰਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਾਂ ਆ ਜਾ but yeah you're right you got to get closer. This is the playoffs. You're not going to get by with those long distance finesse type goals. You got to get those ਮਿਹਨਤੀ ਗੋਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਕਰਨੇ ਪੈਂਦੇ.
The speed and skill he has, you've seen he has the ability to take over games, especially take over some shifts.
Yeah.
Have not seen that from him yet in this series.
So we've talked about 2 of the major stars for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Austin Matthews and of course Mitch Marner. The guy we haven't talked about yet is a game-time decision. William Nylander. Any fresh news on that yet, Gerp, in terms of the pregame skate? Nothing yet.
Still just speculation that he is going to play, but nothing official.
They really need him because that last game, 5 power play chances, no goals on that. I mean, that's unacceptable for the Leafs, and we know the whole series has been the same story for them. Obviously, Nylander opens up some space. He has that threat of the shot. He's a great playmaker, can make a difference on the power play.
He was the number 2 guy on this team all season, so yeah, they definitely need him. 40 goal scorer. That's a big loss to have in the first 3 games.
I was talking to Harp actually before the pre-show, and he brought up a valid point too. Why not play Matthews for a longer duration of the power play? We've seen teams do that with Ovechkin and other top guys on their power play, and taking them off.
Yeah.
Maybe give him some time to get something going because right now nothing's working.
Yeah, you need a couple of things. You need that power play, which is clicking at 9%. Not great when you have that type of weapon, those types of weapons. But William Nylander missing on the power play is the big thing right now because as of right now, it seems like Austin Matthews is the only shooting threat.
Yeah.
Morgan Riley, you don't worry about his shot too much. Mitch Marner, you don't worry about his shot necessarily. Tyler Bertuzzi, when he's in the middle of the ice, you don't worry about that too much either unless he's getting a pass. And right now they're overloading on Austin Matthews and essentially saying, we know you want to go to that guy, somebody else beat us.
Yeah.
Mitch Marner, take a shot. When Nylander's on the ice, he gives you that opportunity. He gives you that chance on the other flank, and he can move around a little bit too.
You have to play to your strengths. The Leafs are a fast team, a high-skilled team. They have to stick to that. They're buying into Boston's game plan, and this physical play, being the pest, that comes naturally for Boston, and that's not a natural game for the Leafs. And I feel like they've kind of gone away from the bread and butter, the speed and the skill.
Well, you got to engage, with those players to a certain extent, because we're going to talk about him next. But Brad Marchand, not only is he a pest of a player, he's also putting up points in this series. He's got 6 points. He's picking up the assists. Shouts to Louis' son, Louis the Putter, Jake DeBrusk, who's having a great series. But Brad Marchand is the guy that right now is making the impact for this team. The Toronto Maple Leafs have done a good job on Pasternak, boys.
Yeah.
But Marchand is actually providing the answers offensively.
Yeah, he's scoring goals, he's producing points, but also the agitation. He's definitely distracting the Leafs. And some of the guys like Domi and Bertuzzi have stepped up in the last month or two for the Leafs, and they are now looking at Marchand on the ice rather than trying to do their job out there. So that's definitely something he's done.
Domi's been pretty good, though. Bertuzzi, I can understand.
Yeah, but physical play as well. Like Marchand, we know he can put up some points, but like we just saw in that empty net goal, he took out Bertuzzi, who he had a little bit of a battle with the whole game, back and forth, but he brings that edge. And he gets very close to that line. Sometimes he crosses it, but he usually doesn't. He gets very close to the line. He makes you cross the line, take a penalty or do something stupid, and then this is what happens. He scores.
Even with Marchand, I mean, he's known as a pest. There's a lot of guys who get that reputation in the league, but he's also, from a pest, he's grown into a leader. He's become a leader of this
captain,
team. And now you can maybe call him a mature pest, and that's what he's become because, he is the leader of this team. There's no doubt about that.
He's a senior pest.
Yes.
You're trying to say a mature pest.
I'm sitting with a couple of them right now.
We'll save that for on air. Don't you worry. But in terms of, Brad Marchand, he's a guy right now that I love boxing. You guys know I talk about boxing and all the time. When you can make your opponent angry, they're coming from a very different place.
Yeah.
You're between their ears. You're playing the mind game, and it feels. Sure, the Leafs have done a decent job of trying to maybe turn away from him, and the fourth line maybe doing their job on the forecheck with a couple of those Connor Dewar and Ryan Reeves. But when you get into the mind of the opposition, like Marchand is with Bertuzzi and some of the other players on this lineup, this is a situation where you're playing out of anger. You're not focusing on what you need to focus on, and that's a lot of that happens in prize fighting where you're dwelling on anger and you're saying, okay, I need to make an impact here rather than focusing on what you need to do.
Yeah, you get away from your game plan and you start doing things that you normally don't do or you aren't supposed to be doing, that you didn't plan for, like you said. So yeah, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing, guys. Like he's getting into their head and he's also putting up the points.
I'm sorry to say, boys, but this falls on Sheldon Keefe because that's got to be his job to make sure these guys remain focused and keep their eye on the prize and don't fall off their game plan.
Well, he did make some comments last game about how Brad Marchand gets calls and doesn't get called and all of that. So we'll see if it works today because that's a game between Ovi Hegi like a game KD ਉਹਨੇ
ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਕੋਚ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਦਾ ਫਰਜ਼ ਵੀ ਬਣਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਖਿਡਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਮਝਾਓ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰਲੀ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਦਾਂ ਰਿਟੈਲੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ but still comes down to the players. Like you got to have that discipline to know you're in the playoffs. You can't retaliate to this guy.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned you're a boxing fan. It's kind of nice to see the build-up of the coaches now too, getting into it a little bit out in the media.
Yeah, this is kind of Floyd Mayweather's like dad, Roger Mayweather, getting involved here too. So ਬਾਕੀ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਗੋਲਚੀ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਵੇਮਨ ਅਤੇ ਆਲਮਾਰਕ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜੋੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਸਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਖੇਡੇ ਪਰ there was also a comment by Montgomery ਜਿੱਤਾ ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿ ਡੋਮੀ ਨੇ ਧੱਕਾ ਮਾਰਿਆ ਸੀ ਸਵੇਮਨ ਦੇ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਮੁਕਾਬਲੇ 'ਚ ਤਾਂ Montgomery ਨੇ ਆਪ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਵੇਮਨ ਦੇ ਮੈਂਟਲੀ ਹਾਲਾਤੇ ਮਿੱਠੀਏ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਮੇਪਲ ਲੀਫਸ ਦੇ ਖਿਡਾਰੀ ਸੋ ਕੀ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਿ ਉਹਨੇ ਜਾਣ ਕੇ ਬੁੱਝ ਕੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਧੱਕਾ ਮਾਰਿਆ ਸੀ is swimming in their brains.
I think he is, and I think that was a very smart thing the coach did too. Again, it's got them thinking about something else, and Keefe's got to, and the leaders of the Leafs have to keep them thinking about the game. But that is a very smart, short tactic. But
it's also smart on Boston's behalf in terms of who are you going to start next game? Are you going to start Swayman or Allmark? This gives Montgomery a bit of an out as well to start Swayman again because he's in their head. We got to start this guy again. He won that last game rather than having to go back to Allmark, which doesn't make sense to me at this point. You got to keep going with Swayman.
I would originally I was okay with going back and forth, but here now it's a situation where you're saying if he's potentially just on the cusp of goaling this team. The Stars haven't been able to score so much. You got to come back with Swayman, right? And Swayman ने आप कहता सी पिछले मुकाबले तो बाद च मैं तो हर एक गेम खेलना चाहता.
But it's a great luxury for Boston. They have 2 elite goaltenders, and ਦੋਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਣਦੀ ਵੀ ਆ. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਗੇਮ ਮੁੱਕਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਜੱਫੀ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਆ, they have a good relationship. That's huge for
the future team ਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ Swayman, right? Trade deadline ਤੇ ਵੀ Linus Ullmark ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਕਿ ਇਹਨੇ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਹੋਣਾ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ Boston ਨੇ. ਗੁੱਡ ਚੀਜ਼ ਸੀ ਇਹ ਪਲੇਆਫਸ ਲਈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਹੁਣ 2 ਗੋਲ ਹੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਪਰ ਉਹਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਥੋੜਾ ਹੀ ਆ Boston ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਦਾ ਵੀ.
ਚਲੋ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਨੇ ਕਦੋਂ ਜਮਦੋਂ ਸਥਿਤੀ ਤਾਂ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੱਲੇ.
ਨਹੀਂ
ਪਰ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ
ਆਲਮੋਸਟ.
ਪਰ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਜੇ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਿੱਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਅਗਲਾ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਿੱਤੇ ਇਹ ਆਖਰੀ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਾ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੋਮ ਆਈਸ ਤੇ. ਤਾਂ ਜੋ ਬੋਵਨ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਵੈਟਰਨ 42 ਸਾਲ ਕਮੈਂਟੇਟਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਮੇਪਲ ਲੀਫਸ ਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਬੜੀ ਇੱਕ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਬੜੇ ਕਰਾਰੇ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਬਾਤੇ ਸੀ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਮੇਪਲ ਲੀਫਸ ਦੇ ਫੈਨਸ ਨੇ. ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਯਾਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰਨ ਕੀ ਆਏ ਇੱਥੇ ਰਿਐਕਟਿਵ ਨਾ ਹੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਟੀਮ ਨੂੰ ਹੱਲਾਸ਼ੇਰੀ ਦਿਓ. ਇਹ ਬੇਇੱਜ਼ਤੀ ਵਾਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ. ਹੋਮ ਬ੍ਰਾਡਕਾਸਟਰ ਨੇ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿਆ ਬਾਤ.
ਯਾਰ ਮੈਂ ਮੰਨਦਾ ਇਹਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਕੀ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਪਰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਸੰਭਲ ਕੇ ਚੱਲਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ. ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਥੋੜੀ ਕਰਾਰੀ ਕਰ ਗਿਆ ਯਾਰ. ਉਹ ਵੀ ਟਿਕਟ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੱਕ ਬਣਦਾ ਜੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਉਹ ਕਰਨ.
ਨਹੀਂ ਯਾਰ ਇਹਨੇ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਸਹੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ. ਹੋਰ ਕੋਈ ਕਹਿਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂਗਾ. ਵੈਟਰਨ ਇਹ ਹੈਗਾ ਨਾਲੇ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਵਾਲਾ ਪਰਸਨੈਲਿਟੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਆ. ਗੱਲ ਵੀ ਸਹੀ ਹੈ ਨਾਲੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਟਿਕਟਾਂ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਦੀਆਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਹਿੰਗੀਆਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ 'ਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਹਿੰਗੀਆਂ ਉੱਥੇ $500-600 ਦੀ ਟਿਕਟ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ. ਸੋ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਵਾਲੇ ਲੋਕ ਆ ਕਾਰਪੋਰੇਟ ਉਹ ਚੁੱਪ ਕਰਕੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਬਸ ਆਪਣਾ ਖਾਣਾ ਪੀਣਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਕਰਨ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਬਸ ਦੈਟਸ ਇਟ. ਗੇਮ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਬੜੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂਗੀ.
ਅੱਜ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਆਨਲਾਈਨ ਉਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਸ਼ੌਂਕ ਪੂਰਾ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ. ਲੈਣੀ ਤਾਂ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਟਿਕਟ ਪਰ I think it's around $1,000 $900 starting to get in today. So it's pretty pricey but again if people are paying for their ticket
if that's how you want a fan, if you want to be quiet and if you want to enjoy your hors d'oeuvres and sushi or whatever filet mignon jo bhi hega utthe
ਅੱਛਾ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਹੈਗਾ
ਜੇ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ corporate ਸੀਟਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਚੱਲ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ. That's fine but you're also going to get criticized because Winnipeg is rocking, Vancouver's rocking, MSG's rocking, Carolina's rocking, UBS Arena on Long Island, they're all rocking. Which one's not?
Hey, you can't say everybody sitting there is in the same
but I'm saying it's open for criticism.
I feel like it's open for criticism.
The majority.
Maybe it's just the fan base. Maybe it's
but that's what Joe Bowen's saying.
That's what he's saying.
No, I'm saying, and that's their right. That's their right to do what they want in there.
No, but come on, you gotta.
We're never going to agree on this.
You can't just cheer your team when they score or lay a big hit. You gotta keep that energy going throughout the down times. That's the most important part, right?
Especially for a fan base that's got and I get it. Like fans can be reactive. They feed off their team, and the team feeds off them. The ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਡਰਾਉਣੇ ਸੁਪਨੇ ਹੋਣ Boston Bruins ਨਾਲ ਉਹ fan base ਵੀ ਨਰਵਸ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ. ਪਰ ਕਿਤੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਹੱਲਾਸ਼ੇਰੀ ਤੇ ਮਿਲਣੀ ਪੈਣੀ ਆ. Right?
And you need to show a bit of heart too. Like you need that guy that the team is rooting for, cheering for. Like let's say Marchand of Boston. You know that there's
it's a two-way street. Is my point. It can't always be the players providing the play. Sometimes you need it the other way around too. So that's why I think I'm kind of with Joe Bowen on this one. I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it too.
You know what? If he's a guy that's been in the game for 40 plus years, he's
allowed to say what
he's allowed to say whatever he wants. But he's been there for a long time. He understands it too.
He's right though. The players can't say anything. Nobody else can say anything. So. He's like, I'll say it. And it's true. He's right. The fans need to make more noise.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to ask the fans, please cheer for us. So it's got to come naturally.
Hey, that to me is a really interesting kind of side story here. How does Toronto's fan base react today? So let's keep that in the back of our mind. All right, before we wrap up with the pre-show, I do want to ask you about the awards, boys, because is hafte, aun wale hafte che, unna ne hona award de bhi dene hai, so voting ho gayi hai. So let's start with the biggest one of them all, the Hart Trophy. Who's your pick? Gerp, let's start with you.
I got Nikita Kucherov as my pick. Scored the most points in the NHL this season. Only the 5th player ever to get 100 assists. I know Connor did it this year as well, but still, only 3 guys had done it before. But aside from that, the percentage of points for the Tampa Bay Lightning that he was a part of, 50% of the goals, guys. Half the goals involved Kucherov. That's an MVP right there.
I would say Nathan McKinnon, he single-handedly has taken over games again this year. They don't have the depth up front that they once had on that Stanley Cup team. And, in that last month of the season, he put a hat-trick in himself to win that game at the end. So I'd say McKinnon.
All right, Vezina Trophy.
I'm going with Connor Hellebuyck on this one. He had 37 wins, which is the second most this regular season, 5 shutouts as well. But for goalies who played 30 games, he had the best save percentage, and he was top 3 with goals against as well. So a lot of those games that Winnipeg won, they won because of Connor Hellebuck?
Thatcher Demko for me, I know it's tough to gauge with him getting hurt at the end of the year, but Thatcher Demko was definitely the star, the stud for the Vancouver Canucks. And yes, you know what? The injury does put a little bit of a damper on that. Tough to tell in the end of the year, but it shows you how the Canucks struggled without Demko.
All right, the Norris Trophy.
I think it's undisputed. Quinn Hughes this year put the team on his back, led all defensemen in points, in assists. He's scoring goals. He carried the team this year, Randeep, in terms of the players besides Thatcher Demko.
Hughes is great. Obviously, I'm going with Roman Josi, though. He scored 85 points, which was third most in the NHL for a defenseman. But from February 17th onwards, Nashville had the best record in the league, second best record in the league, and a lot of it was because of Roman Josi and what he did.
All right, ਮੁੰਡਿਓ ਹੁਣ ਜੈਕ ਐਡਮਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ।
Rick Tocchet in Vancouver, ਹੋਰ ਕੋਈ ਹੈ ਕੋਚ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਦੇਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਇਹ ਨਾਮ? ਨਹੀਂ, ਮੇਰੇ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਹੈ। ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਨੇ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਨੰਬਰ ਤੇ ਹੋਣਾ ਪੈਸੀਫਿਕ ਡਿਵੀਜ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਈਵਨ ਲੀਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉੱਤਮ 5-6 ਟੀਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਣਾ ਤੇ ਰਿਕ ਟਾਕਟ ਦੀ ਕੋਚਿੰਗ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਏ।
ਬਰੂਨੈਟ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ, ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਬਰੂਨੈਟ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੁੰਡਿਓ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਤਾਂ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਟੀਮ ਸੀਗੀ ਨਿਕੰਮੀ ਪਹਿਲੇ 2-3 ਮਹੀਨਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੀਜ਼ਨ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਪੂਰਾ ਇਹਨੇ ਨਕਸ਼ਾ ਬਦਲ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਟੀਮ ਦਾ। He took this team from zero to hero. Now they're in the playoffs and they got an opportunity to beat this team and move along.
All right, I have a vote on the Jack Adams. I voted for both of these, but I'm not going to tell you who got the number one vote. So there you go.
Okay.
There you go. That was the pre-show, folks. We're ready for Game 4. Boston Bruins, Toronto Maple Leafs. Fans are ready in Maple Leaf Square. We're ready to go. Join us in about 10 to 15 minutes. We'll be live on Omni Television and online. We can't wait to see you there.